Chiefs news, analysis, and opinion every day. The Kansas City Chiefs invested 3 draft picks in the offensive side of the ball in the 2025 NFL Draft. And guys, the message could not be more clear. The mission could not be more clear. The Kansas City Chiefs are hoping to add explosiveness, are hoping to make Patrick Mahomes' job a little bit easier, are hoping that Patrick Mahomes gets his wish and the deep ball comes back to this offense. Patrick Mahomes, over the past few seasons, has been relegated from being an MVP level 5,050 touchdown type of passer to a guy that last season failed to break 4,000 passing yards. And if last season is the low mark for his career, it's going to be a magnificent career, but still, while the bloom is fresh on the flower of Patrick Mahomes' career, he deserves more weapons around him, more possibility in the offense, and that is what the Chiefs moved towards, undoubtedly, in this draft. So in this video, I'm going to go over the 3 draft picks and a couple of the UDFA players that are going to further that argument, starting, of course. So the Chiefs invested a first-rounder, a fourth-rounder, and a seventh-rounder in the offense. Not the heaviest of investments, especially including the fact that the first-rounder was the 32nd overall pick, but it does have to be noted that this is about half of the draft. Brett Veach has kind of, from time to time, modulated heavy offense, heavy defense, but mostly heavy defense in the draft. So, round 1, pick 32 overall, Josh Simmons, obviously a guy who the Kansas City Chiefs are hoping solve the problem at that left tackle position. NFL.com has him rated as a 6.39, which means will eventually be a plus starter. In my opinion, this is a bit low. I would be interested to see how much the injury affected that rating, if at all. He was a round 1 projection by NFL.com, which at pick 32, that's a pretty neat trick. And brace yourselves, his NFL comparison is DJ Humphries, but I will caution, I don't think this is the DJ Humphries that the Kansas City Chiefs employed. I think that this was the previous DJ Humphries, who was a pretty good left tackle. Now, one thing that I have to bring up here is that Ryan Nutt, director of college scouting, did an interview, and he said that he believes the combine arm measurement for Josh Simmons, 33 inches, was wrong. He said they had him at 34, and at the Ohio State Pro Day, his arm measurement was a little more than 34. So the 33 mark is kind of the cutoff for where Andy Reid likes to have his offensive tackles. And that was just barely at the mark for Josh Simmons. But maybe, as Ryan Nutt expresses, that was a mistake. While Simmons is obviously not a skill position player, so explosiveness is not the portion of his game that will be concentrated on particularly, and his availability is not guaranteed. Should he be the left tackle that he appears to be, he allows Patrick Mahomes to be the force multiplier that he has proven to be. The left tackle position has been the biggest thorn in the side of this franchise. Brett Veach as a talent acquirer and Patrick Mahomes on the field during the tenure of both of these men, Brett Veach and Patrick Mahomes. For his part, Andy Reid in the past has refused to give his offensive linemen help. Presumably, this is because what you're doing when you have a marquee quarterback like Patrick Mahomes is you're allowing him another weapon as opposed to an extra target, under the assumption that that is more effective than keeping a potential target as a stationary blocker appended to the line. So don't keep a tight end in to help your left tackle. Put that tight end on a route, which allows Patrick Mahomes another option looking around the field. I think this becomes flawed if the tackle situation becomes particularly dire. If Patrick Mahomes does not have the time to assess those targets, then he's going to struggle. Also, Andy Reid in the past has refused, I think, to send out sort of 5-yard routes, flat routes, somewhere easy for Patrick Mahomes to get the ball out to. So if everybody is 10, 15, 20 yards downfield, and the pass protection only allows Patrick Mahomes 1.5 seconds to get the ball out, everybody's still running their route, and no one is looking at the quarterback in time for Patrick Mahomes to have an outlet route. With the acquisition of Brashard Smith and Elijah Mitchell, I think that is doubtful now too. I think that they are perhaps more, while as before they were reticent, Reed was reticent to have those routes run. I think that with weapons like Brashard Smith and Elijah Mitchell, who can take that flat route and turn it into a 20-yard gain, that possibility is back on the table for the Chiefs. Before, basically, that outlet route had to be Travis Kelce as he was reading the defense and on the same page as Mahomes. Sometimes that communication is not in sync. So I think that at times caused the offense to struggle. In my opinion, the worst case scenario here with the injury seems to be Josh Simmons had the patellar thing, right? If you're this far into a video, this far after the selection, you know about that. The worst case scenario with that injury appears to be, and maybe I'm wrong, limited mobility versus the athletic upside that Simmons has previously exhibited, meaning he's not going to be all that he was, but worst case scenario, he can still be an offensive lineman that does take the field. So I think it's off the table that he never again plays, but worst case scenario might be that he becomes a high-end offensive guard. And I think that's worst case scenario, right? I don't think that is very probable at all. In his video shortly after he was selected, I put out there an article from 2009, maybe, I think, where even at that time, they were making the argument that the patellar tear is no longer the career-altering injury that it used to be. Add into that a lot of times guys that go through that injury aren't the age of Josh Simmons. It just happens that's when it hit him. So his youth plays into the fact that his recovery should be on the table. A full recovery should be on the table. A full-strength Simmons is an elite pass blocker, is an elite pass-blocking left tackle. There's no question about that in my mind. But he's also a plus run blocker. So this does affect the offensive line greatly in both directions. We've seen from Jawaan Taylor. Jawaan Taylor is a serviceable pass blocker. He's very bad with penalties, and he's, I think, and I'm no offensive line expert, bad with run blocking. So, and PFF backs that up as well. So having a plus run blocking left tackle is going to be good for the offense. I think that there is a possibility that their left guard position, Kingsley Suamataia, Wanye Morris, whoever it is that wins that position, is a more dominant run blocker than Joe Thuney. Joe Thuney was an effective run blocker, get in someone's way, make sure they don't make the tackle. I think that upgrading the running game via the offensive line with the position of left guard and left tackle could be massive, could be monumental for this offense. It's going to force defenses to bring players down. And with the wide receivers, Xavier Worthy running a 4-2-1, bringing more players into the box does open things up over the top. So even the threat of a heavy-set running game makes the deep passing game more effective. You can't just have that too high safety look if the threat is there that, hey, we're going to hand this ball to Isaiah Pacheco and get 7 yards, right? Because then we're ahead of the sticks, and second down becomes very tricky for your defense at that point. Providing Mahomes with a clean pocket for a standard 3 seconds means absolute nightmare fuel for opposing defenses. He has not had that NFL standard, like this is the gold standard, 3 seconds on a passing play. He has not had that opportunity for a few seasons now. So getting that back on the table means the offense will be light years ahead of where it is that we have seen it in the past few seasons. That alone, just the offensive line portion of this draft. And guys, it gets better from here. So Jaylen Royals was the 4th round selection for the Kansas City Chiefs, wide receiver out of Utah. NFL.com had him rated as a 6.32, which means will eventually be a plus starter. Now, we go back up here. I hate to make the journey all the way back up this document, but just for talking purposes, 6.32 for Jaylen Royals, 6.39 for Josh Simmons. So a similar grade, but in the 4th round. What we see with the offensive side of this draft, which is different than the defensive side of this draft, though I'm not going to argue with the talent evaluation of Brett Veach, is that the offense seems to be, the offense seems to be value selections, meaning guys that fell past where they were projected to go in this draft. The defense is a little bit different, but I think that they were looking for role players on defense as opposed to trying to reconfigure the structure of the defensive side of the ball like they're doing on the offense. He is projected to be was projected to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick. I think he was a 2nd round guy largely across the NFL. I think there is I thought there was a possibility at a point that he would have been like selection 29, 30, 31, 32. So in a different draft, I think that would have been possible. A draft that was lighter on wide receivers. In this draft, we didn't see as many taken in the 1st round, but we saw a lot of wide receivers go and a lot of talent fall in the draft because everybody was figuring, well, we can get a guy later. One of those guys ended up being Jaylen Royals in the 4th round to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is the RAS on Jaylen Royals, a 9.01. So just for comparison's sake, I think Rashee Rice had a 9.32, but he had a 9.32 because he had a much better vertical and a better broad jump. He was not a 4.42 guy. He was a 4.52 guy, if memory serves me correctly. And I believe his 10-yard split was a little bit worse as well. So Jaylen Royals here, shorter arms. Rashee Rice has nearly 33-inch arms. Jaylen Royals has 30.13 and a hand size of 9.5. I believe Rashee Rice was 9.75. A height of 6 feet tall, which is a good number. A weight of 205, which is another good number. I mean, he looks a lot like Rashee Rice, if we're being honest with each other. His game is very comparable to Rashee Rice at times. I do think Jaylen Royals offers not just the 1/10 of a second of advantage in the 40-yard dash that is proven by the numbers, but I think that Jaylen Royals is a more accomplished downfield threat as well. So this pick, just from the physical standpoint, goes a long way towards taking the top off of the defense. He is an explosive receiver with after-the-catch expertise and downfield ability. Part of the allure of Jaylen Royals is his propensity towards scoring touchdowns. He had 15 touchdowns in 2023. Lower level of competition, I understand, but you can't run any further than the end zone. So who knows what that yardage total would have been had the end zone not been there, right? Because he had a lot of long touchdowns, a lot of breakaway touchdowns. And he also had 6 touchdowns in an abbreviated season for 2024. So this is a part of that explosiveness of the offense. They want Jaylen Royals to be a deep downfield threat for Patrick Mahomes. They want Jaylen Royals to be a catch the ball anywhere and be a threat to go all the way. Now, on the team level, barring injury, and again, last season there was no barring the injuries, so we saw what happened there. But barring injury, the combination of Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, and Jaylen Royals leaves little room for excuse this season as far as getting the ball downfield, as far as having an explosive passing offense. with one selection, this wide receiver room, one fourth round selection, one end of the fourth round selection, this room, the wide receiver room, goes from, but they've got a lot of injury threats there, right? Rashee Rice got injured last season. Xavier Worthy is a very small guy. Hollywood Brown didn't really play last year because of injury. And also, if we're being fair, Jaylen Royals ended his last season with an injury as well. But all of a sudden, if you have one guy go down and another guy miss a couple weeks, you still have two of these four names on the field, whereas last year, I got 7 reps at wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. Things were just that dire. They pulled me out. They dusted me off, got rid of the mothballs, and I got to suit up for a couple snaps there. So the explosiveness for the wide receiver position is extreme. We even saw Rashee Rice, who is unquestionably the slowest guy in this group. Xavier Worthy 4.21, Hollywood Brown 4.27, Jaylen Royals 4.42, Rashee Rice 4.52, I believe. Last year, before the injury, Rashee Rice was becoming a downfield threat. He was catching deep passes. He was running deep routes. We didn't really see that from him in his rookie season. Majority of his receptions, just off the top of my head, I don't have the stats on this, were at or within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. So we started seeing towards the playoffs last year, Rashee Rice get 10, 15 yards downfield, and it was working well for him. In his rookie season. Last season, we started to see him catch some deep passes. The 7th round pick for the Kansas City Chiefs was running back Brashard Smith with a 6.0 rating from NFL.com, traits or talent to be an above average backup, and a 4th or 5th round draft projection, again a 7th round pick. He does have in his RAS some red flags here. Below standard height, 5'9", below standard weight, 194 pounds. Not a great vertical at 32.5 inches. But this side of the screen should give you some relief. A 4.39 40-yard dash. That's an elite number, especially for the running back position. Then you get into the 10-yard split of 1.54. That is a good number as well. Now, this does exemplify a little bit of why the RAS isn't something that I often use. I've started to this offseason, but when you have incomplete testing, it really throws a wrench into things and makes the total score, in my opinion, a little bit wonky. So how do you grade a guy that just has the height, weight, and 40-yard dash on the RAS when other guys have every box checked? Smith is a converted wide receiver with big playability and the ability to be a weapon out of the backfield. He's got good vision too. So this is something that I've seen some people knock him for his vision. I don't see what they're seeing. I don't understand what it is that they're seeing, especially when he has limited experience as a running back. But I do think he has plus vision, and he's very good at not getting touched at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, that gets harder at the NFL level, but the ability to just so Kareem Hunt gets touched at the line of scrimmage a lot because he's not a very explosive guy, and certainly not at this point. But he falls forward, right? You get that arm or an arm and a shoulder into Kareem Hunt, he just doesn't care. Isaiah Pacheco's vision, I think, is... Well, we'll get to this in a second. I apologize. Kareem Hunt is not the back he used to be, though he is very effective in short yardage situations, and Isaiah Pacheco's speed has proven ineffective because his field vision fails to outweigh a thirst for contact. Isaiah Pacheco tends to just run into players. We saw him do a little bit better at the beginning of last season, but again, an injury got in the way. This pairing has left the Kansas City Chiefs running game lacking explosive plays, which means if the opposing defense does not have to worry about your running game, they can have more they can put a linebacker on the field because the speed threat's not there, and a linebacker is more effective at stopping your running back at or behind the line of scrimmage than a safety on the field. They can bring that player into the box, and it causes problems compounding for the Chiefs' running game. Versus you have faster running backs on the field, things are more murky in what defenses you're allowed to call. Elijah Mitchell and Brashard Smith will have similar roles and perhaps similar expectations. But the bet here is clear. Big plays and bringing a lighter box, even if only by way of smaller players, right? Even if you're bringing another player into the box, if that player being brought into the box is a safety or a nickelback in order to account for Brashard Smith and Elijah Mitchell's speed, you're still taking him out of the passing game. So if the defense has to bring more players into the box to account for a rushing / backfield threat, because remember, Mitchell and Smith are a threat to be in the flats as well. They're a threat to run a wheel route as well. This threat makes the defense's calls, depending on personnel, a much more difficult task. And it only takes a couple wrong calls from a defensive coordinator in the course of a game, and all of a sudden, with these players, you get one defensive call wrong. It's 6 points, right? So, moving on to the UDFA to talk about here, there are two. Mac Delana, who probably I should list second, but I do have I do like Mac Delana. His game, I think, could create problems, right? Rated a 5.68 by NFL.com, candidate for bottom of the roster or practice squad, ran a 4.36 40-yard dash, and you see it. He is visibly trucking. Trucking might be the wrong term because he weighs about 113 pounds, but he is a 176, I think, to be accurate. Someone's going to call me out. But he is light on his feet. He's going to make things difficult for a defense down the field, should he make the team. And then there is the curious case of Elijah Badger, rated 6.11 by NFL.com. Good backup with potential to develop into a starter, but also a round 6 projection. He ran a 4.43. It was a true 4.43 because it was at the NFL Combine. All of these players factor into the Chiefs' desire to get back to an explosive offense. So, guys, I think that this is an absolute win for the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that these players will contribute what it is they are counted on to come in and contribute. And the offense should look markedly different in a single offseason for the Kansas City Chiefs. Brett Veach, just to wax poetic for a moment, has done this time and again. Identifies a problem, and he's able to fix it in a single offseason. So long as the resources are there, right? The offensive line has been a problem for a very long time. Why? Well, because those players are expensive. You don't have a whole lot of cap space. Those players go early in the draft. You don't have high draft picks. So long as he does have the ability to do this, remember when Mahomes was still on his rookie contract, the Chiefs got to bring in some players, to acquire some players that were maybe a little bit more expensive, a little bit over what it was that the Chiefs would have wanted to pay, and plug them onto the line. This is also part of the reason that we saw the Chiefs have to make a move on Joe Thuney. Fan favorite? I get it. Very good offensive lineman? I get it. Hard to pay multiple guards $20+ million per season. So that is what happened, in my opinion, there. That is what I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. We are over 2 years now of consecutive daily uploads, and as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.